right, let's create our first chart here. Now down at the bottom, notice the title of this sheet is called Sheet 1. Let's double click that and change this. We're going to make a very simple, what I call a bar chart based on, let's do category by sales. And then I want to talk about these three options right here. Notice that this one, if I hover over it, it says new worksheet. So a worksheet, which is what we have here, contains a single visualization. The next one here, it says new dashboard. Now, as you might see is implied by that icon, a dashboard contains two to many worksheets or visualizations on it. So we first create a visualization and then we can create a dashboard to aggregate visualizations together. And finally, this last one is a new story. A story is where we can take a dashboard or a worksheet and then show different forms of the same visualization as we tell a story through the data. So we'll go through all those examples with something useful. So let's start here with category by sales. I want to grab a dimension and a measure. Now the way I'm going to go through and explain each of the different types of visualization options that we have is based on the data type. So there's usually, we start with two different fields, and all of these are fields. And if there's only two fields in general, then there are three types of visualizations. There's visualizations where we have one categorical and one numeric field. We can have two numeric fields, two categorical fields. So you might think of it as a number to number, a category to number, or a category to category. And so those are the three general types of visualizations. But Tableau, as you can see over here in this Show Me option, can actually make all of these. What is this? 3 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 24. They have different categories of visualizations over here. But these are all variants on those three types: number to number, category to category, or category to number. We're going to make the category to number one first. Literally, we have a field called category. I'm going to click and drag that here to columns. And then notice what it put in here: furniture, office, sales, technologies. What it did was it looked at the category column over here in the data source, and it said, what are all the different types of values in this column? And there were only 3 total types, and it put that here in this summary. It didn't know what to put in here because it doesn't know what the other field is that we want to compare it against. It just says, okay, you've got 3 options here. If we put it down here in this one, it would put it over on the side, but it's the same basic thing. So we're going to grab a numeric measure to compare it to. Now notice over here, if I were just to click on something like region, or no, let's not do region, let's do sales down here. I'm going to deselect region. Come on, click on sales. There we go. The Show Me pops up with, it says, here's some options for having one category or one categorical dimension and then one numeric field. Well, let's just click and drag sales here to rows. And what it does, it says, okay, what you've got is a bar chart. And notice it selected it or highlighted it right here. I could change this. This is a stacked chart. This is what they call a tree map. Pie chart. We've got a heat map or data table, or they call that a heat map. This is, what do they call that, a highlight table? Similar concept. Box and whisker plot, packed bubbles, anyway. Lots of different ways to show a dimension against, or a categorical field against a numeric field. Oh, it switched them here on us. By the way, you can switch back and forth easily. Notice how it puts sales up here and category down here. We can use this button to switch back and forth to show the view how we want it to. Anyway, I'm going to go with this one. And notice with category, I have this little tree right here. That's because we created this hierarchy right here. And it knows that subcategory is a child of category. And then what it did was it broke out everything in furniture by its subcategories: bookcases, chairs, furniture, tables. Office supplies includes all of these. Technology includes all of these. And even subcategory includes products. And there's tons of different products within each one. Well, that's more granular and detailed than we want. I'm going to click this to get rid of product names, click this to get rid of subcategory, and keep it right there. So this is my bar chart. And what I get here is it automatically has summed the sales across each of these. So my total sales looks like I sell technology the most, office or furniture next, and office supplies. Okay, well that's mildly useful, but what if I'm interested in my average sale per category? Well, then I don't want the sum of sales, because what if I have more sales in technology than office supplies or furniture? Well, in that case, then this bar being higher simply represents the fact that I have more sales. It doesn't mean that I have more, I'm not making more per technology sale. Hopefully that makes sense to you. If we want to find out how much we're making per sale, then we got to change this from a sum of sales to some other aggregation. And I can do that by clicking on that down arrow, and I have a bunch of options here. I can simply count up the total number of sales, and I can see, all right, office supplies is by far what I sell the most of. But I sure didn't know that when I was looking at total sum of sales. That must mean that my office supply sales are much smaller on average, since I'm getting much more of those, but it's also my smallest total category. Well, let's change this to an average. And now I can see, sure enough, office supplies is the lowest average per sale. Technology is my highest average per sale. And so changing the type of measure that I'm aggregating by is very useful. All right, there are a lot of other useful things I can do with this. For example, let's say I want to filter this by different regions. So I'm going to come here to my region option, and I'm going to click and drag this into my filters. And it says, okay, here's the values we find for you in filters. Which of these do you want to include? Well, for now, I'm going to include all of them. Or I could just click all down here. I have other options. For example, I could include, if I have text, like lots of different text values. Now, in this case, I only have 4, so it's not a big deal. But maybe I have a few 400. I could say only show me those options that contain this text, or starts or ends with or equals this. If this wasn't a text filter, if it was numeric, I could also say things like, well, give me only those sales that are between this value and that value, or the highest 100 sales, or something like that. Anyway, I just want to show everything, because what this does for me next, I'm going to eliminate this, and I'm going to show filter, and that gives me this region option over here to where I can easily remove one or more, and I can see now this is just the West. All right, let's go back and put in just Central, just East, just South. Well, actually it looks to me like they're all pretty similar. Something else I could do if I wanted to break this up by region, or see all of these at once, is I could actually take region and add it to my columns right here. So now I'm looking at 3 different dimensions. And now I can see, okay, here's the total by each one of these on each dimension. I can make that a little bit more useful by taking a region and putting it on color, so that now I can see, all right, Central is always blue and so forth. And I got my my legend or my key over here and my filter still. It might also be useful, for example, to put notice I've got my average sales right here on each one of these bars. I could add something else, like let's say I want to know my average returns for each of these categories. I've got returned right here. I'm going to put this maybe on, let's put it on detail. And then if I hover over this, I'm going to change my return to not just, because return is a dimension, I'm going to count returns for each one. So now what I get is I can hover over each of these, and when I look at those details, I get a total count of sales that were returned in each of those categories. So this details is a nice, useful way to add additional information that you might need. All right, now that we've broken this out by a third variable, or a third field, let's go back to our show me, which gives us a variety of charts that we might consider based on this data set. So for example, if I switch to a stacked bar chart, I get all the same information broken out by region here, and then I still get my categories here on a stacked chart. That's kind of interesting. I can do this as a bubble, and then I still get it broken up by, this is my category, and then I still have the West, all of my different regions in there. I'm not sure how useful this particular chart is in this context, but I just wanted to show some additional options. The heat map table. Anyway, overall not bad. These are a variety of techniques and options to use when you have one dimensional and one numeric field.